And I found that to be hilarious because of the Nintendo Direct. Now we're going to talk about a little bit of Nintendo. I am sure by now you guys are aware of what happened during the Nintendo Direct. But if you're not, don't worry. We can go over this. What happened is that Nintendo had a pretty good Direct, actually. They showed clips of Hollow Knight Silksong, which is literally all I needed to do, and people have been on board. But they also showed shit like the new Donkey Kong game coming out, and they talked about the specs of the Nintendo Switch Pro, Nintendo Switch 2, and they showed games. Overall, 9 out of 10 Direct. The reason why I wouldn't call it 10 out of 10, because even though I'm not a huge Nintendo person, I wouldn't call it 10 out of 10 because they didn't tell you how much it's going to cost, which is where the other shoe drops. Nintendo originally said that it was going to cost like $450 because of the tariffs. So Trump put out tariffs against basically the entire country, not understanding how tariffs works and using trade deficit numbers from literally ChatGPT to come up with these percentages, which is why you had like certain countries getting hit with like 64% tax increases or tariff rate increases. And so to anticipate that, Nintendo pushed a lot of their manufacturing from like Japan and China to Vietnam to avoid the tariffs. And that's why that was the price. So let's read a little bit. Let's get a little of the numbers. A little bit of the numbers here. Nintendo said Friday that pre-orders for the company's hotly anticipated Switch 2 game console will be delayed following President Donald Trump's announcement this week of sweeping new tariffs. Pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 in the United States will not start until April 9th. In order to assess the potential impacts of tariffs on the evolving market conditions, our Nintendo representative told CNBC. Go away. Nintendo will update timing at a later date. The launch of June 5th is unchanged. It is March. Sorry, it's April. It's April right now. That's 2 months. Literally from today, from this stream, in 2 months, Nintendo Switch 2 will be available in America. Okay? And the thing too is here, Vietnam was hit with a 56% tariff and China is now at 54%. Nintendo hasn't said which new consoles will be made. Nintendo also didn't say if they would raise the price of the console, which was announced earlier this week to be $450 in the US. A trade group focused on electronic manufacturing estimated Friday the game consoles prices could rise by 50% due to tariffs announced this week. 50%, you guys. And if we want to do, we want to do a little bit of a quick math, right? That would make this console $675. A 50% increase. That's insane. That's insane. That's insane, dude. This should be more expensive than the PS5. Like, right? Because the PS5 was what? Like no. Like normally, yeah, it was $499 or $700. That's insane, dude. You're approaching like it. So it's higher than the base edition, and it's almost as expensive as the Pro edition. That's just the base edition. This is just the base Switch. So if it goes up 50%, as they estimate, not for sure, but could, you're looking at $675. Like it's crazy. It's crazy if you aren't me. Because you know what? I'm not the bigger person here. I fucking told you guys. I told you guys. I told you guys 4 months ago. 4 months ago. What did I say? What did I say 4 months ago?
Properly for that, right? And you're going to have the
what was that again?
consoles go up. Harassment and crunch without being compensated properly for that, right? And you're going to have the price of consoles go up for no reason other than a dumbass tax plan that from a person who doesn't understand tariffs. So there's a lot of people who are claiming victory right now, especially in the online grifter space. They're so happy, they're excited, but they do not understand that they're going to get fucked over like the majority of us because this affects everyone. This is not good. You're going to be paying more money at the end of the day across the board. Tariffs are a national tax. Like you're going to have to pay it because if you're going to pay for anything that gets imported, like video games, you're going to get that cost. I would prefer games not be more expensive. I'd prefer consoles.
Oh man, someone should have listened to this guy who was smart and he said this shit would happen. Like literally posted this shit 4 months ago. You're doing a psyop. You are. Also, it's gonna be really funny. This Project 25 tries to come from Nintendo. Oh, Soul Black Eye, you in this chat right now? Soul, are you in this chat? Because I'm not laughing. This happened. This happened actually. I told y'all. I told everyone. I tried to reach as many people as I could. Only like 6,000 of you guys saw it. So 6,000 guys are safe. But everyone else, I try to tell y'all. Been trying to tell y'all this shit's gonna hit everyone. And then you see people like fucking where is he? The quartering. The same people, mind you, who were complaining about how Biden's ruined the economy because the Dow's down 1,200 points. Now it's down like fucking 5,000 in 2 days. Who was like, yeah, Trump's going to make gaming better and for everyone. Now it's actually, you don't need a new iPad. You don't need a new cell phone. You don't need a new video game console. You want them. There's a big difference. And if you look at the people whining about the tariffs, I challenge you to ask them how their lives have been affected in any way. You have to be a giant dumbass to not understand how tariffs would affect your day-to-day life. Like, we can agree on that, right? You have to be insanely stupid to not understand how these tariffs could affect your day-to-day life. It is a literal tax on everything. We import everything. My phone is made from parts from like China and like Korea. This computer, the thing that you guys are watching me on right now, the thing that the quartering uses for his job as a content creator on YouTube, is all of this. It's going to be affected. Groceries are going to be affected. Like all of this. This is why, if you guys notice a theme on my page recently, where I was talking about, you know, stuff like empathy and like how we are discussing things with people and like what happened to Sida and Valkyrie and all the other shit. I'm trying to prime people to understand like it's all connected. Your extreme lack of empathy for others allowed you to vote for a man who's also non-empathetic, who would do things without any consideration how it would affect people immediately. And you are the people being affected, but you're so lacking in empathy that you think it won't happen to you, but as long as other people suffer, it's fine. That's why I made this video calling Asmongold a loser, the internal victim complex of the anti-woke. This video is probably like just a good, if you guys haven't seen it, it's just a good culmination of like all their tactics and stuff. But like, that's why I talk about this stuff. Why do black people get this kind of reactions? How I deal with trolls. All this stuff is related. Because this is now where we're at. You now have people who, again, I did that whole video when I was talking about Project 2025. The majority of that video was me trying to reach gamers at an empathetic level. And then at the end going, but if you're not going to be moved by empathy, let me go to your selfish needs. Your games are going to cost more money. And now we're seeing that. It's a grand scale, right? We were trying to be empathetic with them and let them understand, hey, people are hurting, and these policies are passing that are hurting people who are like queer or trans or, you know, women in their autonomy. That's bad for everyone. You had trans people telling you, if you make these bathroom laws that lets people decide who can go into what bathroom, you are effectively creating ugly laws where you're saying, you don't look like a woman, so I'm going to inspect you and I'm going to be violent towards you because I don't think you look like a woman, right? Like, that's the slippery slope. That's where we are right now here. Everyone thought, oh, it's just video games. It's not that serious, Mike. But the rhetoric is the same. And now that gamers are finally having to pay attention because it's affecting them, now it's, wait a minute. I voted for Trump because I thought he was based and he was going to get rid of the illegals. And I want to trigger the libs. But now my Nintendo Switch is going to cost $700? I don't like that. Like, Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah, and the quarterback has been losing money left and right. Like, I don't want to hear about that guy, but like, wasn't I talking about the Switch? I was. Yeah, so like, the Switch costing almost $600 potentially, or $675 potentially. Well, yeah, we're doing a hard pivot back because I can't keep going down that thought process. But these guys who were so like, oh yeah, the Trump tariffs are going to be a good thing. It's going to be good for gaming. It's going to be great for video games. And it's like, obviously it's not. Obviously it's not. This is like, that's why you have this is the chat room, by the way, for Nintendo Treehouse. The day later, it was people going, drop the price, 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 increase the price. They're talking about the price of the games because, oh, that's another thing too. The Nintendo Switch 2 has been weird because of like the game pricing is kind of scary. Because I believe people were looking at like footage that had like, oh, it's cost $90, but they were like, that's only wait, what? Nintendo Switch 2 launches June 5th at $630. Oh, in Canada. This is in Canada. This is in Canada. This is in Canada. This is in Canada. Okay, I was like, wait a minute, they didn't announce the price there. But like, yeah, like the games. Here we go. There's a lot of misinformation about the games, like how much the games themselves are going to cost. First party Switch 2 games, including re-releases, all run either $70 or $80. All Nintendo's titles see an increase from the $60 Switch from status quo. Yeah, because I first had heard that like only certain games were going to be like $80, right? Yeah, here. That doesn't mean that $80 is the starting price for all Switch 2 games. Donkey Kong Bonanza, slated for a near launch of July 17th, so it's going to be $70. And Breath of the Wild is going to be $70. Nintendo hasn't explained what makes a $70 game worth $70 or $80, or $80 games like Mario Kart. Yeah, so like it's not every game is going to be $80 or whatever, but I think they're doing essentially like dynamic pricing, right? So if you guys are unfamiliar, dynamic pricing is really the concept of adjusting price based off of its demand. So if something is in like high demand, they might jack up the price. If it's in low demand, they might lower the price. Typically, they're going to jack up the price. So it sounds like they're doing something more of that. Like, yeah, Mario Kart is going to be 80 or 90, but Donkey Kong will make it 70. Zelda, maybe 70 or 80. The weirdest thing to me, though, is the physical cartridge. Because it's not physical. What they're doing is a game key. They're going to do a game key for it. Nintendo has revealed that physical copies of certain games on new Switch 2 console will be game key cards, requiring a download before they're playable. Inserting the game key card for any of these games brings up instructions on the Switch 2's home screen of how to download them. Which I guess, according to like people I've talked to, like they have done this for other games. You know, like here we go. On modern consoles like PS5 or Xbox Series X, the physical copies of the game that don't include the game are more prevalent. For example, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on PS5 required a 150 gigabyte download at launch, while only 72 megabytes of data was included on the disc. So this isn't something exclusive to Nintendo, but I fucking hate the idea of buying physical media only for that to be a step into getting the game. I don't want to buy a CD or a cartridge if that CD and or cartridge only gives me the instructions to how to download the game. Because now I'm paying more, because you always pay more for physical. You're paying more to get the exact same tool. Like you buy physical to avoid the downloads, right? Like if I want to buy a physical copy of a game for my consoles, I want to do that so I don't have to install the game into my console. But now every game is, you have to install it, which also puts a fear in me that we truly are in the age where we don't own anything. If a game has to be downloaded, that means the game can be delisted. That means that the game could change its rights and suddenly you have access to it, right? We've seen that 100 times on digital storefronts where like, what was it? Activision had lost their rights to the Spider-Man license. So like all like the Amazing Spider-Man games and everything before that done by like Beenox or produced by Activision, Web of Shadows, those were inaccessible. You couldn't buy them on PC anymore. You couldn't get them on Steam. You couldn't get them on Microsoft Windows Store or anything like that. The games still exist, but because the rights lapsed, you couldn't access them legally. How much higher do you think it will get with these tariffs accounted for? Honestly, okay, so here's I'm putting on my conspiracy that cap slightly, like a little bit tilted. Think of more like a TI style, not fully on, but it's present. I think this was always going to happen, but the tariffs provide an excellent coverage for the companies to do that, because you guys heard the rumors, right, about GTA 6 potentially. I know it was one analyst, but still, GTA 6 potentially costing $100, and how that was insane, unheard of. But then we started seeing games like, well, this is only worth $70 now. That's only a $30 difference. And if there was any game that could have released for $100, it'd be Grand Theft Auto 6. But now you're seeing, because of the tariffs, companies across the board, outside of video games, I'm talking about like grocery stores, everything, they can now jack up their prices like they always wanted to, but then just say, well, it's because of the tariffs, right? Like Target might jack up their shit to like $14 for like a loaf of bread. Well, because we import the wheat or whatever, right? Like, and they could lie to you and you wouldn't know. So I think that like we're going to see, especially in the tech side, a lot of prices go up. And it is kind of funny that Nintendo was the first one to pull the trigger on it, considering the fact that Nintendo's often been associated with much more affordability because they didn't get into that arena of, you know, powerful processors, GPUs, you know, OLED displays and all that shit. That was always from Microsoft and Sony. Those were the ones who were like, we're going to eat up all the graphical power. We're going to show you how fucking strong and muscular our processors are. And Nintendo was like, here's a Wii, right? But now they're like, okay, we're going to get into this game for real. Which part of me thinks it's because of the Steam Deck, honestly. But still, now they're like, okay, we're going to have like 4K capabilities. Actually, let's look at the Nintendo Switch specs. I'm sure Digital Foundry's got to have done one, right? They would not be Digital Foundry if they didn't do that. Yeah, okay. An hour? No, okay, we're not looking at that hard. I'll just do an article. Has a 7.9-inch 1080p LCD touchscreen with 120 Hz refresh rates. This is a bunch of boring shit no one cares about, I know. But like, just letting you know, like they're trying to, like I said, I think they're trying to compete with the Steam Deck. Even though I heard the Switch 2 has less battery life than the original Switch. But I kept my Switch mostly docked, doesn't really matter, but still something to point out. Custom NVIDIA processor. So the public could target up to 120 frames per second. Some games, the handheld mode was 60 frames per second, and yeah, at 4K. Yeah, it's like sorry. So yeah, like they are announcing, they are competing with the Steam Deck. They want to go for 120 frames per second. They want to go 4K 60. They want to have an NVIDIA processor with DLSS and ray trace. Like they are announcing they are no longer doing the affordable approach. Like, no, we're gonna fucking go hard. We're doing this now. You guys were joking about us for years and how we're so out of date, and so now we're okay, fuck it. And now you're seeing Nintendo trying to take the lead on this. And like, yeah, it's gonna cost fucking $600. And what? For the first time as PC player, I feel the potential of competing with Nintendo. It looks like Nintendo's experimenting with making their own PC someday. I think, again, the TI conspiracy hat is still on. I think Nintendo is starting to realize that, much like Xbox and PlayStation, that they are reaching the limit of exploiting their audience, right? That's what they do. These companies exploit their audiences to get more money from us, right? By way of exclusives, new technology, what have you. But Nintendo's audience is, I would say, more so than even like Xbox and Xbox and Sony. Nintendo's audience probably has a bigger overlap with like people who are on TikTok all day or like on social media all day, right? There's competition now, and the competition isn't just with other game companies, but now it's like I can go on my phone and within 2 seconds, boop, 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 put my passcode. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on whatever, and I can waste thousands of hours. I would normally be on my Nintendo Switch or on my Xbox or on a PlayStation, right? So these companies are finding ways to have internal growth. What Xbox is doing, they're doing the whole anything's an Xbox everywhere. You can play Xbox on your phone, on your TV, on your fucking computer, on your fucking PlayStation. You can play Xbox games on PlayStation. You want to have as many people playing Xbox as possible, because the only other way for them to have line always go up is you just charge more. You just literally just squeeze the value of your audience. PlayStation seems to be okay with just squeezing the audience. And I think Nintendo's reached an impasse because Nintendo really made its bones like in the more recent generation with the Wii. Outside of, there was no TikTok or anything like that to really take away those hours from them, are now realizing that like, no, there are people who are just going to fucking go on TikTok all day. Like we have to now reach into that other audience, which is like, I'm only going to play a game if I can get 120 frames a second, right? The PC audience, so to speak. If you're a PC gamer, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. Where you're looking at fucking computers, you're looking at Digital Foundry videos, you're looking at GPU comparisons, seeing how many frames does this get on this build, on this setup, on this thing, right? Nintendo is very obviously trying to reach into that market, which is why The Verge is very obviously comparing those two products, because they kind of match up spec for spec in a sense. And that's strange for Nintendo. I saw someone talking about how Nintendo games on the Switch 2 look like PS4 games. That's fucking good for Nintendo. This is the same Nintendo that couldn't run Skyrim. You know what I mean? Like, And now they're running Cyberpunk 2077. Like, this is the win. The Switch has 250 gigabytes of internal storage. With expanded slots for micro SD cards. Like, this is legitimately, I would say this is the most beefy Nintendo has been since the Super Nintendo came out. Like, and the biggest advantage that the Switch 2 is going to have, obviously, is the access to the Nintendo library. The Switch 2 supports almost all original Switch games. Like, look at this. You talk about resolution handheld on just stats alone, it beats the Steam Deck. Steam Deck only rendered 1280 by 800. This can do full 1920 1080. Obviously, Steam Deck though has way higher resolutions, but cheaper price on Nintendo Switch 2, unless you're in America. Comparable storage size to the Steam Deck LCD. Same sort of expansion slots. Like, it doesn't beat battery life, obviously, but like it's pretty comparable. And it's $449. It's cheaper than the Steam Deck OLED, and only like less than $100 more expensive than the Steam Deck LCD. Sorry, I was ignoring you guys. I'm a bad streamer. Dude, is Nintendo popular with cozy gamers? They're all on TikTok. Yeah. Next thing is, every big dev will have a PC storefront. Oh, for sure. Metro Point's going on Halo Turn or something. The one thing I like about Nintendo Switch 2 is that it's more powerful. Yeah, like, but yeah, like what you said about Astaro, about Nintendo's popular with cozy gamers. Yes, that's because that was Nintendo's brand. Like, okay, if you think of the three big companies, right? I guess the only console companies, Nintendo was always associated with like nostalgia and cozy. Even when Nintendo tried to break away from that, that's kind of been just stuck to them. You look at Xbox, you're thinking Call of Duty. You're thinking first-person shooters, right? You look at PlayStation, you're thinking of single-player narrative stories. Like, that's the brand they've attached to them. Which is why Sony puts out a lot of well-performing, from a technical standpoint, single-player narrative games, right? You have God of War, you have Spider-Man, you have Uncharted, you have Last of Us. I know a lot of that is coming from Naughty Dog, but like, they promote their single story play. A Stellar Blade, right? Like, that's what they're known for. And you look at Xbox, it's like, yeah, bro, I want to shoot some things. I want to play Call of Duty. I want to play Halo. I want to play any sort of first-person shooter. You think of Xbox. Even like sports games too, like Madden. You think really of Xbox, right? And then you have Nintendo, which was always like cozy kitty. So that's where they're starting from. But now Cozy Kitty is competing with TikTok more so than Shooty McShooter and narrative story game guy. So they now have to appeal to the Shooty McShooty and the narrative story genre guy, which is why the games we're talking about here too, like, yeah, you're gonna get the Nintendo game, but they're also bringing Cyberpunk 2077. That's to appeal to more of like the little bit of the hardcore shooty guys, right? Also the narrative guys. Like, they're not just focusing on Nintendo properties, which typically Nintendo does when they announce a new console. It's usually like, here's Zelda, here's Kirby, here's Mario, here's Donkey Kong, here's, all of our people. And then maybe an indie. This one's like, yeah, here's fucking Skyrim. here's Cyberpunk 2077. Because letting you know, like, we know that these are the beefy games you guys are used to, and now we can play beefy games. So come on over to Nintendo. It's like a Death Row Records. If you don't want people getting up on stage and dancing, come on from Death Row. This is that. If you want cozy games, but also want to rip someone's head off, come over to Nintendo. We can do that now. Like, that's kind of what it screams to me. If you got a Steam Deck, you can still find ways to experience Nintendo titles if you know how. Yeah. Right. But it's like, But here's the added benefit here: convenience. Because let's say I have a Steam Deck and maybe I finagle a couple things and I'm running Zelda on my Steam Deck, Breath of the Wild 4K, 60 frames a second, right? Or I could just buy the official Nintendo game, which will let it run like that natively without any sort of hiccups. Like that's the reason why like emulation works, is because we don't have access to a game on like modern consoles with modern technology, and we emulate it so we can experience the game that came out 20 years ago. But if the people are like, hey, we're actively remastering it and keeping it up and doing all this stuff, people will always choose convenience. Always. That's why pirating existed, because people weren't allowed to have a convenient way to find something. Look at all the streaming anime services now. Like, anime piracy has gone down tremendously, because it's more convenient for me just pay Crunchyroll like $9 a month and have infinite access to all this stuff than trying to go to like 20 different websites, finding out which one has the better subbed version, right? Like with like better typesetting, or better translation, making sure the translation I got makes sense, making sure like they have more current episodes. Like, you'd have to always be rotating through stuff, and then the added risk of you being caught pirating an anime, or the website, because now everything's streaming, getting clapped because they got caught. Like, people only sell the high seas when they don't have a convenient way to get something. So once Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, you're probably gonna see like a lot of people not focusing on emulation on PC for Nintendo games. Didn't they clap like Simu or something? Yuzu. Yeah, and Yuzu was big. That was, last year they clapped Yuzu. And it's like, okay, Nintendo kills Ryu Jinx. Nintendo gets rid of it's like, and obviously there's some like shows and stuff that you can't watch online anymore. You kind of have to go back into the seas, but like the vast majority of animes you want to watch, you can find it on Crunchyroll or High Dive or Netflix or Hulu or any other streaming services, right? And the ones that you can't, you know how to find it. But all this to say, the reason why Nintendo was going after places like Yuzu and shit was because they're working on the Nintendo Switch 2, which would do the same thing as Yuzu, but at a cost, whereas Yuzu was free, right? And I'm not anti-emulation. I look at emulation as game preservation, right? Especially when the company's like, we're not going to put out another, I don't know, fucking Star Fox game for 30 years. Like, okay, well, I'm going to play Star Fox 64. And now there's nowhere I can play it. And I don't have a 64. They don't sell it, or it's too hard to get. So I'm going to do it online, right? I get that. But like, I also understand Nintendo is very litigious when it comes to their IPs. Even if they've been sitting on IP for forever, they're still going to attack you if you go for it. I get that too. They don't pay for more streaming service. I pay for way too many streaming services. Like way too many. Yeah. Oh no, I know for a fact Nintendo does emulation on their own game. Everyone does that. Nintendo, Sony, Xbox. That's how they do backwards compatibility. Like, they all have emulators. But the thing with difference between them and us is they definitely own the patent. Like, they own the rights to those games they're emulating. Like, it's their game, or like they published it, right? But like I said earlier, if you make it easy, if you make it convenient, which is why I think Nintendo is taking this approach where it's like, yeah, we're going to go after the emulators, we're going to do all this shit because our Nintendo Switch 2 will also do the same shit, and you have access to all of our library. Nintendo Switch, what is it? Is it the GameCube? Like online, some shit like that? Like online, what is it? What the fuck is it? Yeah, Switch Online. There we go. There we go. Yeah, you can get GameCube games on Switch Online, and it's like that's huge, especially because according to this, resale prices are around like $160 for a loose disc, or even $200 if you want a complete inbox copy. Like that's why they do this stuff, right? It's because they have to make it a value proposition. If I'm allowing everyone to have Pokemon Uranium out, right, and they can play one Pokemon game that has all the Pokemon we ever released in one game, that lowers the value of the next Pokemon game, because this one only has the next like 200, but this game has 800 Pokemon. This has a better value proposition, and the price is free. It's hard to beat free, but you have to sue free out of existence. There's no one else. And I swear to God, I sound like a Nintendo show, but I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I get it. I understand it, like why they did what they had to do, right? Because it's like, this is coming out. This is in the works. So like, it makes sense that they stopped people from buying this shit, that they stopped people from doing all this stuff, because they needed people to want their shit. Otherwise it's pointless.